I'm Jacob. I'm one of the senior gardeners here at Holker Hall and Gardens. So it's fallen to us really to try and retain what information we have, what has been passed down the generations, but also we have an ambition to improve the data we have on our collection. So I can add that observation. That's just an example of how we use Hortis to kind of manage the collection. It's not just about recording it; it's also managing it. Climate. So it really it doesn't take much effort to get to this point. And of course, those visitors who are happy navigating through the garden with maps like this on their phone can find their way to these plants very, very easily. So you can hover over and find each of those plants on this trail.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming along. And for those of you who are watching this as a recording, welcome. I'm Jamie and I work in the Hortis team at Species 360. And today we will be talking through just a bit of a practical guide and an introduction to Hortis and how it might be of benefit to your garden. On the call with me, I have Jacob Tarr, who is a senior gardener at Holker Hall, who have been using Hortis for a little while. So we'll be able to hear a little bit about Jacob's experience of using Hortis. And also on the call, we do have Caroline Gold from Discover Scottish Gardens. And I'm just going to see, Caroline, if I can give you permissions to speak. I think I can. Oh, Caroline, can you hear us?
Hear me?
We can. Brilliant.
Okay. Great. Sorry, I don't know if I'm signed in properly, but yeah, great to be on the call. Really excited to hear a bit more about this, and welcome to any and all of our members on the call.
Well, good stuff. So let's get started. Thanks, Caroline. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Hortis, Hortis is a cloud-based platform for managing your plant collections. So whether you're a big or a small garden, Hortis is really robust and it can suit the needs of any size of gardens. It replaces spreadsheets, or if you have paper records or any sort of maybe slightly outdated solution, then Hortis is a really intuitive, user-friendly solution that you can move across to. It's designed for everyday use by teams, volunteers, or individuals. So whether you're in the garden or at your desk, Hortis is always available. It helps you to log accessions, if accessioning and plant records is something that you do within your garden, but you can also log observations, images, and plant care notes all in one place. Structured around individual plants, making it easy to track the plant's history, health, and location over time whilst it's in your garden. There's no sort of technical setup, so perhaps tech is something that maybe you've shied away from in the past. It's very simple, user-friendly, and something that you can use on a mobile, tablet, or desktop from your browser. So Hortis is part of a non-profit organisation called Species 360, and Species 360 have been supporting conservation and data sharing across thousands of zoos, aquariums, and botanical gardens for the past 50 years. Their mission is to improve the care, conservation of species by giving organisations better access to shared data and tools. And Species 360 have a pre-existing similar solution to Hortis, which is called ZIMS, which is for zoos and animal conservation. So in 2002, Hortis joined the Species 360 team as a way of branching out to help organisations with their plant collections, with data sharing for their plant systems and ecosystems. So this partnership gives Hortis the benefit of long-term sustainability, technical expertise, and a global network of users across Species 360. And it also allows Hortis to contribute to global biodiversity efforts alongside leading wildlife and plant conservation organisations. And just a little bit more about Hortis before we move on. for those who aren't familiar. So Hortis, yeah, we help gardens of all sizes, whether it's a smaller private estate or someone who just has a private plant collection, or if you have a larger botanical collection, or if you're something in between. And we help with kind of everyday challenges. You can see some of the challenges that are here. So if you're kind of getting overwhelmed with organizing your plant records, whether it's something that you already do or you're starting from scratch, then Hortis can help clean all of that up and make life a lot easier. If you struggle with things like plant names, then we have an integration with Plants of the World Online, where you can get all of the kind of validated plant information, which I'm sure Jacob will perhaps talk a little bit more about that later. And it just helps your teams work better. So you can have multiple users within Hortis, so that keeping your plant data is a much more collaborative effort. So it's not just something where the responsibility is sitting on one person's shoulders, which is an immense amount of pressure to put on one person. But then obviously if that person does move on, then it's then very difficult to find that one expert who knows everything, where a lot of the information could have actually been in their head. It makes it a lot harder to replace them. Hortis can also help with your educational impact. So if you perhaps have students that come to your gardens, then you can, for example, give them read-only access where they wouldn't touch your records, but they would be able to see an overview of kind of everything that does fall within your plant collection. And also we have something that's called public sites, which enables you to share your collection with your visitors, which we'll have a little bit more of a look at in a moment. And like I say, it's available everywhere, whether you're out in the garden or whether you're at home, on your desktop or in the office, you can always access Hortis. So you can see here with the integrated taxonomy, you've got all of the plant names at your fingertips. Again, this is very intuitive. If you're not quite sure of the spelling, you can kind of start making the perhaps the rough guess of the Latin spelling of the taxon. And then it will come up with kind of the closest match for you. And we also have the IUCN Red List status and the native distribution, the life form. All of that information is included within this integration with Plants of the World Online. And as I mentioned, you can share your collection with the public. So whether you wanted to share all of your collection with the public, we work with a garden in the US, which was our Garden of the Month last month, which is the Chihuahuan Desert Nature Center. I always struggle to pronounce that. I've learned today. But they've done an incredible job. They signed up to Hortis in March, and already in May, they had their collection fully on board with Hortis, and their public site is readily available. And if you wanted to learn a bit more about them, you can see that on the Hortis website. But this is just a really great way to be able to just share the information of your plants within the collection, whether you want to share maybe autumn highlights or spring interest. It really allows your visitors to see on a map here, you know, what's great to see in the garden at this moment in time. And yeah, you can do everything within Hortis itself. So you can export your data from Hortis at any time. But you can see on the dashboard here, we have kind of top level information. So how many accessions, how many plant materials, how many taxa do you have in your garden? And then the breakdown of where does that sit? There are some gardens that we work with that have said, oh, we actually didn't realize that we had plants within our collection that were critically endangered. But with this IUCN Red List integration, then you obviously can see that as an overview. And it's also just nice to be able to see what have other people within the team been doing in the garden. So you have an activity log where you can see what someone has been doing. And if someone is perhaps slightly nervous about, I don't know, it could be their first time of using Hortis, you can always go back and it's very easy to perhaps correct any mistakes that they might have made, or yeah, gives full accountability as to what anyone has been doing. And I think I won't bore you too much by talking about our product. But it is great that we have got Jacob here from Holker Hall, because Jacob will be able to talk firsthand about how they've used Hortis and how it's helped their garden to get their plant records in line. So over to you, Jacob. I think you are going to share your screen, so I'll stop sharing mine.
Yeah, okay. Okay, can you see that?
I can.
Lovely. I'm just going to try and get this window over somewhere where it's not going to bother me. Right, okay. Yes, so hello, everybody. I'm Jacob. I'm one of the senior gardeners here at Holker Hall and Gardens. To give you some context, we're a private estate, but we are open to the public. Our garden opens in March, closes in October. And the garden has been open since the early 1950s. So it's a public garden in private ownership, and very valued by the community. So I'll give you a sense of where we are. It might be helpful for those in Scotland that we're not so far away from you. I'm just going to skip over to Hortis to have a look at the map here. So we're on the south coast of Cumbria, down here on Morecambe Bay. We're fairly coastal. We're just separated from the coast by our parkland, our deer park, and our garden. If I just zoom in, can you all see this? Just to double check. Yeah, okay, thank you. So this is our garden. We have our formal gardens down here, next to the entrance, next to the house. We have a wildflower meadow, which we reclaimed from our deer park. And we have the majority of the area of the garden, which is our woodland gardens, making up most of it. So yes, the formal areas of the garden, largely what you expect. We have mixed herbaceous borders, we have formal lawns, we have topiary, we have cottage garden planting. But as I said, the majority of our garden is more like this. So we have an extensive woody plants collection, trees and shrubs. The Cavendish family have been collecting trees and shrubs for generations, and they're assiduous at collecting, but not so thorough with record keeping. So it's fallen to us really to try and retain what information we have, what has been passed down the generations, but also we have an ambition to improve the data we have on our collection. There's an awful lot of unnamed trees that we would love to build a case for and hopefully get, you know, a species at least, that would help us along with communicating and also kind of getting a real value of our collection, which I feel is, they've been buying plants from choice nurseries for around 100 years. So I think we've got some choice things hiding in there. So this is the team. This isn't the team, not now. We've shrunk since then. So there's actually only 6 of us, which for 27 acres is sometimes a struggle. We have to be very efficient with our work. And we're privately owned. We don't have volunteers. So it can be an uphill battle trying to fit in plant records with our day-to-day work. And when we were looking at solutions to our plant records, the main requirement was that it's easy to use and it's quick. Because otherwise, with the best will in the world, we are out in the garden gardening, and we don't have a dedicated plants records person. It's all up to us, so it has to work out there. So to give you some context of where we came from, Jamie was talking about, handwritten and Excel spreadsheets. We had both. This was only back in 2022. So we had an Excel spreadsheet, which did get sporadically updated. And we had a lovely hand-drawn or hand-annotated OS map from the early 2000s, which you can see in the background there. And in theory, in this area, which is nicely colored orange in the most beautiful color, should, in theory, relate to this page in our Excel sheet, with each number denoting where that plant was in the garden. Now, I'm sure this was a huge improvement when they implemented this 20 years ago, but it hasn't been updated. And So we have used Hortis to try and retain some of the physical information, the location of certain plants within the garden, but have it easy to use and not stored away in the head gardener's office. So we've started our migration of all our data over to Hortis last year. It's been exactly a year almost since we started. This is kind of the progress we're making. So hopefully you can see this, but I'm just going to scroll down slightly. So we started off with 1,800 materials. That's 1,800 records of individual plants back in June 2024. And this green line is showing how many of those plants I've looked at in the garden and I've attached photos to, or I've attached a location to and observed. So we're getting there. We're 2/3 of the way through. It's interesting that this number has stayed steady. I found lots of plants missing. I've found lots of plants dead, which have obviously disappeared, but I've also found a lot of plants that weren't recorded in the original system. So we're staying steady at around 1,800 to 2,000 plants. And to give you a sense, that's with me working a day a week on this at best over that year. So not many days. Certainly in very busy times of year, we will give up on plant records. We've just been through a very busy May and I haven't had a chance to get onto this so far. So I thought it might be helpful to give you a sense of a typical workflow that we have. So on a Friday when I can, I will go out with my hand-drawn map. I will go out with Hortis, usually on a phone or a tablet, and I'll come to an area of the garden like the one you can see in the photo here. And I have the aim of doing a stock take through the bed on the right-hand side here. So I have a look at this lovely flowering shrub on the side here. I'm fairly certain it's Philadelphus or Deutzia, something like that. But the first thing I do is look for the old label. We'll have a real good poke around the base, look through the leaf litter, and you'll often find that the label has gone. I'm sure you've had these experiences yourselves. Leaf blowers take them away, squirrels take them away, they get buried, all manner of things happens. So I can't find the old label. So the next thing we do is to have a look at the old map. Now, just for context, in this photo, I've just come down these steps. I'm walking along this path, and I'm looking at the corner of the bed with that Philadelphus. It's somewhere around here, so it's going to be in the low single-digit numbers. So I'll then flick over to Hortis. Now, when we migrated Hortis, we migrated all of that useful data, those numbers from the map and also the plant area. So if we go to list, get rid of these filters just at the start. Now, this is a list of all of the plant records we have. So there's a fair amount there. And finding individual records, there's a trick to it in Hortis. So if you go to filter up here, you can scroll down or search for location. Search for that, and I'll use that location I'm looking for, which I think was HHT. I hope that's right. And apply that, and that cuts down the number of records I'm looking through markedly. I'll do another filter because there's some things here that I've seen before. I've seen this beech, I've seen this camellia, I've seen this Halesia. So I can scroll down and look for position, and I can say it's not positioned, and then that's cut down my list even further of plants I'm looking through. So now I'd look through and, oh, look, there is a Philadelphus on our Hortis records that were migrated from our old ones. And it has the number HHT. So within that area T, it has the number 1. That looks like it's likely going to be the plant I'm looking at. So at this point, I may do a Google search. I'm on my phone, in the garden at the moment. So I might do a Google search just to double check that I'm convinced I'm looking at the same plant that's referred to in the old records. So I've opened up this record here, and I can go to edit this. Now, don't have to put too much information in here. The key thing for us in our workflow is we make a note that it needs to be labeled. So under the tags field here, I can add accession label required. And the other thing we routinely note down is if it's flowering, we note down when it's flowering. So we have a little tag called June flowering that applies. I only looked at this last week. And then you come down and you can add the GPS position. Now, again, I'd be out in the garden with this, looking at my phone. I've got a very good idea of where I am, but I could use GPS location like you would on a Maps app to get me close to where I am. I've already seen this plant behind. I know that's a Eucryphia, and I know that the Philadelphus is in front of it. So I just drag my map until the dot in the center of the screen is where I know the plant is. And then I can press confirm. And then, now this is interesting. Sorry, excuse me a moment.
Just a quick question for you, Jacob.
Yeah, of course.
If I know that some of the gardens that are either watching this or attending may not have the information of, particularly the accession information, when that collection of plants came to the gardens.
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So yes, we're lucky with this particular plant that we have the full information on it. I find many, many rhododendrons in the garden that were not accessioned when they came in, and we don't have any clues really to go on. My basic approach is to make my best guess. So I will put rhododendron down for that plant. And then it's a case of building up as much evidence as you can, flowering time, flower color, and build up a case within that record. We know where it is, we know when it flowers, we know that it looks like this when it does, so that at any time of year, if we get somebody who knows their rhododendrons into the garden, we can give them that and say, look, is this recognizable to you? Can you give us some hints, that kind of thing? So it just makes the research into improving your collection really easy to have all of that evidence in one place. So anyway, I've sorted out this strange shoe. So once we've added those tags and added the position, I can press save. So that position is now logged there, and I'm out in the garden. So I'll make my first observation of this plant, and we can add some images as part of that observation. So I did this the other day and took these on my phone. So those will upload while I'm waiting. You can also add comments to this. You can add an assessment of how healthy the plant is. That's very useful too. So adding that observation. And that's a typical kind of, once I've done that for a plant, I will then move on. My objective is to get through this bed and log as many of these plants as possible. So that is that. Let me just check where I am on my slideshow. So I've added that record on Hortis. I've uploaded photos and I've geolocated it. So often when I'm walking through doing this job, and my priority is certainly on finding and updating records of plants I haven't seen before, but I will also be seeing plants that I've seen before and logged on Hortis that are in flower or perhaps looking ill. So this was the case last week. Oh, sorry, I've skipped ahead of myself there. I'll talk about tags. I did mention earlier that we have these accession label required tags. So this is how we are labeling the trees in our garden at the moment. So a very simple tag, very small, very unobtrusive, with the accession number, which links it absolutely to that material record we have in Hortis. So we use the accession label required tag in order to sort our data and then export that data for our label manufacturer to create the labels for us. So you can sort, filter by accession label required. You can choose how many you want to send off or from what area of the garden you want to send it off. They get made by our label supplier. And then the key thing is to remove the tag that you've just used on those records so that you don't order multiple tags by accident. So that's one of the workflows we use in the garden quite often. Another really useful tag we allocate to plant records is screw label. So you may have seen this style in gardens where you have a screw and a spring. The idea being that as the bark swells, the spring gets compressed, but the tag doesn't get included into the tree. That's great in the short term, but you do need to remember to check all of those trees that you have a label on in that style and periodically unscrew that screw. So by noting on the plant record that that plant has that type of label, we can, in winter, have a job for one of our gardeners where they go out with the list and they check all those labels and can make that change. And then just a couple of tags or representative tags of other uses. June flowering, I've explained, it's in flower. It's great for filtering for things like trails through the garden. And we have a number of champion trees. The tree register measured a few in 2024. Again, recording that kind of information as a tag makes it really easy to select plants for an interpretation trail. So anyway, back to where I was, which was walking back through the garden after having done that Philadelphus. I find this tree now. It doesn't look happy, and it's not because it's horizontal. It's been horizontal for as many years as any of us can remember, but it isn't in leaf in June, and that is unusual. So if I see that, I've got my phone on me, what I'll do is I'll skip back to Hortis, and I'll go to the map view. Now, I've been walking down from where we saw that Philadelphus there, down this path, and I'm somewhere down here. So I have a look on Hortis. I'm like, no, it's not that beech, not that rhodo, but it is that acer. So I last looked at this acer, you can see 10 months ago, and this was a photo I took then, and you can see it was in leaf. It's still not the happiest tree in the world, but at least it was in leaf. So this is a way of you can check on the condition of plants in the garden that you've seen before when your memory fails. So I'm going to make a new observation of this plant because it's not looking good. We'll add a photo. So I have my phone, so I'll just take a photo of it. Add a little comment saying no leaf, consider replacing. And you can, of course, change that to 4. And this is like a little reminder system. I want this addressed fairly quickly, so we'll put that monthly, and that will flag it up on the dashboard that this is one of several records that need our attention. So I can add that observation. And that's just an example of how we use Hortis to kind of manage the collection. It's not just about recording it, it's also managing it. Oh no, it's a county champion too. That's unfortunate. So anyway, so that happened last week, and we immediately got online, looked desperately for suppliers of that tree. It's not usually planted, but it is very nice. So we were lucky enough to find a nursery that had some in. So you'll see down here, I've gone to list view, gone to accessions. One of our newest accession is the small trees, the replacements that will replace that tree eventually. So we bought in 3 seedlings. And the nice thing about Hortis is that although we didn't know the provenance of that original tree, we now know we have a supplier for this tree that we can contact and find out the provenance if we need to. So that's really helpful to have things like that information. And this is how we improve as we plant new plants. This is how we improve the quality of our plant records. So I think I'll just cover some future plans. Hopefully I'm not running too much over, Jamie.
No, you're fine.
So we're still working through that general stock take of the garden, finding what's still on the ground and linking that to our Hortis database. But we do have plans for the future. So the main one is labeling for visitors. So as we go through, we put those small accession label tags we described, but we do want to label for the visitors as well. We're not going to label everything with the traditional botanical garden tag that you'll see an example of here, partly because you do often have lots of things just saying rhododendron. And, you know, that might be interesting to the occasional person, but people generally, when they're visiting our garden, want something unusual. They want to know something they haven't seen before. So we are going to select, we're going to be fairly selective about what trees we label. And it's also partly a cost thing. It's also partly, it's easier to manage for us. So that will come. Visitor interpretation. So this is where we can talk about the public site a little. So we have tried a couple of trails through the garden using Hortis as one of the ways that the public find their way through. We did this for National Tree Week in autumn last year. That was really successful. And we've also tried it as a seasonal what's looking good kind of trail. So if I flick back to my browser here, I'll see if I can head to our public site. So this is how our public site looks at the moment. This was our trail I put together in spring. Excuse me. And it was really trying to highlight some of the more unusual winter and spring flowering shrubs and trees we have in the garden. So Hortis allows you like really straightforwardly to put this site together. There's just a small amount of blurb at the front there. Then you have a list of plants that we can click into. We've got a photo that we chose. We've got some text that we put together, and we have that on a map here. And Hortis also autofills its red list status. It autofills its distribution in its native habitat, and things like plant family and the climate. So it doesn't take much effort to get to this point. And of course, those visitors who are happy navigating through the garden with maps like this on their phone can find their way to these plants very, very easily. So you can hover over and find each of those plants on this trail. The only issue we found with this really is letting our visitors know that this exists. You know, we have an older set of visitors that come mostly, and we're trying to use this as a way of tempting in people, the more tech savvy, the younger people, and we are just working on that at the moment. So still in progress, but hopefully we will get somewhere with that soon. Wrong one. So other future plans are recording our herbaceous borders. So at the moment, we only record our shrubs and trees, but we know that there is the capability in Hortis to also record herbaceous borders. So we will be doing that in the future. And also, just the ongoing process of improving our plant records. Once we've got this accurate database of our plants, it is so easy to send a read-only link to somebody who's interested. So, you know, if we have contacts in the RHS Woody Plant Committee and we'd like to get some experts on magnolias, it's going to be really useful for us to send our database along. They can look through it, and if they find something interesting, that, you know, might help us sort out a visit for them to come to the garden and might help us identify some of our old magnolias. So it will be useful for us, I think, just keeping on improving that quality of the plant records. So I'm going to leave you now with a picture of our most asked about tree in the garden at the moment. It's a lovely magnolia. If you've not seen or smelt this one, do seek it out. It's Magnolia wiesneri, which is summer flowering. It's in flower at the moment, and you smell it before you see it. It's a gorgeous scent, very, very strong. I really like it. The other senior gardener here, Tamsin, says it smells of journaling, which I don't know. I don't get that, but it smells amazing to me. So yeah, that's me. Hope that's been a bit of a fast go through our year of Hortis so far, but if you have any questions, please do ask.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jacob. I've been lucky enough to visit Holker Hall. It is an amazing place. Tucked away. Yeah, really, really great garden. I think I visited probably about 3 years ago. Yeah, be good to visit again soon. If there are any questions, then please do put them in the Q&A session, which is just at the bottom, and we'll answer those. I think we've got a couple of minutes left, but if there aren't any questions, then we can start wrapping up. I don't know if you want to stop sharing, Jacob, and I'll
Oh yeah, sure.
Screen. Yeah. So if we don't have any questions, then not a problem. Here's my contact details below. And Jacob, if you don't mind, we'll send an email out afterwards. And if anyone does have any questions for Jacob, if it's okay with Jacob, then you can cover those as well. Oh, we have got
yeah, of course.
So Bryony asks, as a commercial organisation, what would happen to a garden's records should the organisation fail? I don't know if you want to add some more context to that, Bryony. I'll just turn on your microphone, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. It was really more of what would happen if I was typing in a hurry, realizing you were about to stop, but what would happen if for some reason Hortis collapsed as a commercial organization? What would happen to the gardens that are signed up? What would happen to their records? What's the sort of security, if you like, for garden records?
Yeah, good question. So you own all your data and you own all of your records. The records themselves are held in Google Cloud, and you can export them from Hortis at any point. So you would then have them in kind of a CSV file or an Excel doc that you'd be able to store all of them. If that were the case, or if, let's say, you decided we don't want to use Hortis anymore, we want to use something else, or you want to make something for yourself, then again, that's completely fine. What we typically do, not that this happens very often, but what we would do is we would give you like 12 months read-only access. So you'd be able to log into Hortis, but you just wouldn't be able to make any new records or any changes. So that would then just give you kind of a year to shop around and find an alternative solution.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And can I ask a second question, which is what's the sort of cost or pricing model that you're using?
So we've got two plans, and if you head over to the Hortis website, there is a pricing page, but we have two plans. The plans are a basic plan. So if you have perhaps just a personal small collection that you're not looking to share with the public, and you just want to have maybe one user or two users, then maybe you would go for a basic plan, which is around £460. I'm trying to convert because I've been working. I was in Denver last week, so I'm still working in dollars. And then we have a plus plan, which is, I think, just shy of £1,000, maybe £900 for 12 months. But the plus package is kind of all bells and whistles. So that would enable you to share your collection with the public, gives you as many view-only users as you'd like. So if you do have people that perhaps don't need access to be able to make changes, but you would like them to have visibility of the collection, then you can have as many of those as you'd like. But yeah, on our pricing page, it does kind of go into more intricate detail of the two different plans that we have.
Right, thank you so much, Jamie.
No worries. Thanks for your questions, Bryony. If there aren't any other questions, then we will wrap up. But please do get in touch if you have any questions for Jacob or I. If you'd like to get set up with just a trial of Hortis to have a look for yourself, then that's absolutely fine. Just drop me an email, and we can set you up for a couple of weeks, and you can have a look at how Hortis might work for your garden. But I hope that was a helpful session. And yeah, hopefully chat with you soon.